6 months after the Great Transition, Jiwon sat in his old captain's chair aboard the Soul's Pride, reading a report on his tablet. The ship was anchored next to the same asteroid where they had accidentally started a galactic revolution. But now the mining operation was very different. "Captain," Hana called from the pilot seat, "the Crystalline Confederacy mining ship just arrived. They're asking if we want to coordinate our operations to maximize efficiency for both crews." "Tell them yes," Jiwon replied, "and ask if they need any spare parts. I think we have some stuff they can use." Through the main window, he could see 3 different ships working the asteroid belt. One belonged to the former Imperial Mining Corps, now operating as an independent cooperative. Another was from the Hive Collective, sharing technology in exchange for mineral rights. The third was a joint venture between 5 species that had been enemies just a year ago. "Dongho, any word from the Galactic Cooperative Council?" Jiwon asked. Dongho looked up from his communication station, which was now handling messages in 47 different languages. "President Vorthak wants to thank us again for the quarterly efficiency report. Also, the aquatic republics are asking if we can help them set up a new trade agreement with the Silicon Valleys." "President Vorthak," Minho laughed from the engine room. "I still can't get used to that. Remember when he was the scary emperor who wanted to execute us?" "He's doing a good job," Jiwon said. "Better than I expected, honestly. Turns out when you stop trying to rule people and start trying to help them, governing gets a lot easier." The transformation had not been simple. Changing from an empire to a cooperative government took months of careful planning. The humans had helped design new systems for democratic decision-making, fair resource distribution, and peaceful conflict resolution. Some species had been skeptical at first. They were used to being told what to do and found it strange to have a voice in government decisions. Others were so angry about centuries of imperial rule that they wanted nothing to do with any kind of galactic organization. But slowly, things had started working. The Hive Collective, once the Empire's greatest enemy, became one of the cooperative's strongest supporters when they realized they could share their advanced biotechnology in exchange for help managing their population growth. The Crystalline Confederacy used their natural, mathematical abilities to help design fair voting systems that gave every species appropriate representation based on population and contribution to the common good. Even the former imperial military had found new purpose. Instead of conquering worlds, they now provided disaster relief, protected trade routes from pirates, and helped settle disputes between member species. "Captain," Hana said, "we're getting a call from Earth. It's the company." Jiwon accepted the call. The face of his boss, Manager Kim, appeared on the screen. Kim looked tired and confused. "Jiwon, what the hell is going on out there?" Kim demanded. "We sent you to mine asteroids, and now I'm getting calls from something called the Galactic Cooperative Council asking about trade agreements." "Did you really discover aliens?" "Yes, sir. We met them by accident and things got complicated." "Complicated? I've got reports that you helped overthrow some kind of galactic empire and set up a new government. Is that true?" "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds more dramatic than it really was. We just suggested some basic management improvements." Kim stared at him for a long moment. "Management improvements. You turned first contact with an alien civilization into a management consulting job." "It seemed like the logical approach," Jiwon said. "They had serious organizational problems. And now they want to establish formal trade relations with Earth?" "The cooperative is very interested in human ideas about democracy, efficiency, and practical problem solving. They're offering to share advanced technology in exchange for consulting services and cultural exchange programs." Kim was quiet for a minute, probably calculating profit margins in his head. "How advanced is their technology?" "They have faster than light travel, energy weapons, artificial gravity, and medical equipment that can cure diseases we've never even heard of," Dongho called out. "Also, their food preservation systems could revolutionize Earth's agricultural industry." "I see," Kim said slowly. "And they want to trade this technology for consulting advice?" "And Korean barbecue," Minho added. "Don't forget the barbecue. That's a major part of the cultural exchange program." "Korean barbecue? It's very popular here," Jiwon explained. "Minho's food truck has locations on 12 different worlds now. He's considering franchising." Kim looked like he was having trouble processing this information. "Let me understand this correctly. You accidentally discovered a galactic civilization, helped them restructure their government, and now they want to trade advanced alien technology for business consulting and Korean food? That's about right, Jiwon said. And you're still planning to come back to work? Jiwon looked around at his crew. Hana was teaching alien pilots how to fly more efficiently. Dongho was developing universal translation protocols that would help dozens of species communicate better. Minho was planning the menu for his new restaurant on the former imperial capital, but they were still a mining crew from Earth, and they still had a job to do. Yes, sir. We'll be back on schedule. We've got a full cargo hold of rare metals. Plus the cooperative has arranged for us to carry some alien trade goods back to Earth. Should be our most profitable run ever. Good, Kim said. But next time you accidentally overthrow a galactic government, call me first. The paperwork for this is going to be a nightmare. After the call ended, Jiwon walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. The galaxy looked different now. Instead of an unknown void full of potential dangers, it was a neighborhood full of new friends and business partners. Captain, Dongho said, joining him at the window. We're getting reports that 3 more species want to join the cooperative. They heard about our democratic processes and want to try self-government instead of being ruled by local dictators. Democracy is spreading, Jiwon said. That's good. The Cooperative Council wants to know if we're available for more consulting work. Apparently, there are several regions of space still controlled by empire-style governments, and they want help transitioning to cooperative systems. Jiwon thought about it. When they had left Earth 6 months ago, they had been simple asteroid miners looking to make enough money to keep their ship running. Now they were accidental diplomats and management consultants to a galactic civilization. What do you think? He asked his crew. I'm in, Hana said. This is way more interesting than just mining rocks. Same here, Minho agreed. Plus, I want to see what alien food is like in other parts of the galaxy. Research for the restaurant business. I've already started learning the languages of the species that want to join, Dongho said. This is the greatest linguistic opportunity in human history. Jiwon nodded. All right, but we finish this mining job first. We made a commitment to our company and humans keep their promises. Of course, Hana said. Wouldn't want to be irresponsible. 3 weeks later, the Soul's Pride docked at Earth's orbital station with a cargo hold full of alien technology and a crew that had accidentally become the most important diplomats in human history. The media was waiting for them. So were government officials, corporate executives, and academic researchers. Everyone wanted to interview the crew that had made first contact and somehow convinced an entire galactic empire to embrace democracy. But before any of that, Jiwon filed his mining report with the company, noting that they had successfully completed their mission and turned a profit. He also mentioned, in a brief footnote, that they had established peaceful relations with a galactic civilization and arranged for ongoing trade agreements. Manager Kim read the report, shook his head and made a note in Jiwon's personnel file. Excellent problem-solving skills. Promote to senior captain. Possible assignment to new Galactic Relations Division. 6 months after that, Jiwon received a thank you card in the mail. It was from President Vorthak of the Galactic Cooperative, who sent his regards on the first anniversary of Liberation from Dramatic Tyranny Day. The card included a photo of Vorthak at his new job as an elected administrator for infrastructure development on Zentharos Prime. He looked happier than he had as an emperor. The work was harder but more rewarding, and for the first time in 1,000 years, people actually liked him. At the bottom of the card, in careful handwriting, Vorthak had written, "Thank you for teaching an old emperor that there are better ways to lead than through fear. The galaxy is a better place because 4 humans decided to treat everyone like people. Hope you are well. Your friend, Vorthak." Jiwon stuck the card on his refrigerator next to his grocery list and a reminder to call his mother. Then he went back to planning the Soul's Pride's next mission, a routine mining operation in the Andromeda sector, with a small side job helping a recently liberated star system set up their first democratic elections. Just another day at work for the crew that had accidentally taught the galaxy that most problems were easier to solve than people thought, and that treating everyone with basic respect and common sense could change the universe. They never did figure out why that seemed so revolutionary to everyone else. The rebellion started on a Tuesday. Ambassador Kree of the Crystalline Confederacy stood before the Imperial Council and delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. Her crystal body rang like bells as she spoke. "We declare our independence from the Veltharan Empire," she announced. "We refuse to be ruled by fear any longer." Emperor Vorthak leaned forward on his throne. "You dare rebel against Imperial might? Our fleets will crush your worlds to dust, will they?" Kree asked. 4 humans just proved that Imperial might is mostly show. They navigated your impossible routes, negotiated with the Hive, and defeated your champion fighters. And they did it all while asking about your customer service policies. Murmurs went through the council chamber. Representatives from hundreds of species exchanged glances. The human trials had been broadcast across the Empire, and everyone had seen the same thing: the mighty Empire's greatest challenges solved by practical thinking and basic common sense. "If humans can do the impossible so easily," Kree continued, "maybe the impossible was never really that hard. Maybe we've been afraid of shadows and fancy uniforms instead of real power." Within a week, 17 more species declared independence. Within a month, half the Empire was in open revolt. But it wasn't violent revolution. It was something worse for the Imperial government. It was paperwork rebellion. Species simply stopped following Imperial orders. They stopped paying taxes. They stopped sending resources to the capital. When Imperial governors demanded compliance, the rebels said they were taking a human approach to unreasonable authority. Emperor Vorthak sat in his crystal throne room, staring at reports of chaos across his empire. Worlds that had been loyal for centuries were now ignoring his commands. His admirals reported that their threats no longer worked. The rebels say they learned from the humans that authority must be earned, not imposed. Admiral Kyrex reported. "They're asking for justification of every Imperial order." "Justification?" Vorthak roared. "I am the Emperor. My word is law." "Yes, Your Majesty. But they want to know why your word should be law. They're asking for performance reviews of Imperial governance." Vorthak felt something he had never experienced in his 1,000 years of rule. Panic. His empire was falling apart not because of military defeat, but because people had stopped being impressed by him. "Bring me the humans," he commanded. An hour later, Jiwan and his crew stood before the Emperor again. This time there were no guards, no ceremonies, and no threats. Vorthak looked tired and smaller than before. "You have destroyed my empire," the Emperor said quietly. "We really didn't mean to," Jiwan replied. "We were just trying to be polite and do our jobs. Your politeness has cost me half my territories." "Well," Jiwan said, "maybe the problem isn't what we did. Maybe the problem is that your empire was held together by fear instead of by actually doing a good job." Vorthak stared at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, people only stayed loyal because they were scared. The moment they realized they didn't have to be scared, they left. That's not the sign of a good government. That's the sign of a government that was never really working in the first place. But I am the Emperor. I have ruled for 1,000 years. And how's that working out for you?" Hana asked. "Because from where we're sitting, it looks like your management style needs some serious improvement." The Emperor looked around his throne room. His advisors were avoiding his eyes. His guards were shifting nervously. Even his own people were starting to doubt him. "What? What do you suggest?" he asked quietly. "Well," Jiwan said, "back on Earth, when a company is failing this badly, they usually bring in consultants to help fix things." Consultants? People who come in from outside, look at how you're doing business and suggest improvements. Fresh eyes on old problems. Vorthak was quiet for a long moment. "You want to be consultants to the Empire? If you want. We charge reasonable rates, and we've already proven we can solve problems your people couldn't handle." "And what would you do?" "First, we'd need to understand what's actually going wrong. Talk to people, look at your processes, figure out why everyone wants to leave." 3 days later, the human crew had temporary offices in the Imperial Palace. Dongo had set up a customer feedback system, sending surveys to representatives from every species in the Empire. The responses were not good. According to the surveys, Dongho reported, 93% of your subjects hate being conquered, 87% think imperial taxes are too high, and 99% want a say in the laws that govern them. "But they're conquered peoples," Vorthak protested. "They're supposed to serve the Empire." "Yeah, that's the problem," Minho said. "You're thinking of them as conquered peoples instead of as citizens. No wonder they want to leave." Hana had been studying imperial bureaucracy and had filled 3 notebooks with problems. Your administrative system is incredibly inefficient. You have 17 different departments that all do the same job. Orders take months to travel from the capital to outer systems. And nobody can make decisions without getting approval from 12 different offices. It's designed that way to maintain control, Zeloth explained. Well, it's not working, Hana said. All it's doing is making people frustrated and angry. When people can't get simple problems solved quickly, they start to hate their government. Jiwon had spent his time meeting with rebel leaders, imperial governors, and ordinary citizens from dozens of species. His conclusions were simple and devastating. Your empire doesn't actually do anything useful, he told Vorthak. You collect taxes, maintain armies, and enforce laws. But you don't provide services that make people's lives better. You don't solve problems. You don't help species work together. You just take their stuff and threaten to hurt them if they complain. That is how empires work, Vorthak said defensively. No, that's how bad empires work. Good governments exist to serve their people, not the other way around. What do you suggest? Stop being an empire. Start being a cooperative. A what? Jiwon pulled out a tablet and showed Vorthak a diagram. A cooperative. All the species work together voluntarily. They pool resources for common goals like defense, trade, and scientific research. But each species gets a say in decisions that affect them. That's impossible. How do you maintain order without central authority? Same way we do it on Earth. Democratic processes, fair laws that apply to everyone equally, and governments that actually help people instead of just ruling them. The species would never agree to such a system. Want to bet? Minyo asked. We could set up a trial run. Get a few rebel species to try working together voluntarily. Show everyone how much better things work when people cooperate instead of being forced to obey. Emperor Vorthak spent the next week in his private chambers, thinking. Reports continued to come in about more rebellions, more independence declarations. His empire was dying and nothing he tried could stop it. Finally, he called the humans back to his throne room. If I agree to try your cooperative system, he said, what happens to me? That's up to you, Jiwon said. You could retire. You could become an elected leader if people vote for you. You could just be a citizen like everyone else. After 1,000 years of absolute power, you want me to become a common citizen? Common citizens aren't common, Hana said. They're just people, and people deserve respect whether they're emperors or janitors. Vorthak looked around his crystal throne room, at the monuments to his power and the symbols of his authority. He thought about the reports of rebellions, the failed attempts to maintain control, and the simple fact that his people no longer wanted him to rule them. Very well, he said finally. We will try your cooperative, but I want to make one thing clear. If this fails, if chaos results, I will hold you humans responsible. Fair enough, Jiwon said. But if it succeeds, you have to promise to give up the emperor title and let people choose their own leaders. Agreed. As the humans left the throne room to begin planning the transition, Vorthak sat alone on his crystal throne and wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his very long life. But deep down, in a part of his mind he had ignored for centuries, he was curious to find out what it would be like to be just a person. Instead of an emperor, the humans made it look so easy. Emperor Vorthak paced back and forth in his private chambers, his heavy footsteps echoing off the crystal walls. Reports were coming in from across the empire, and none of them were good. The humans have been here for 2 weeks, he muttered to his chief advisor, a thin creature named Zeloth with too many eyes. 2 weeks, and they're causing chaos without even trying. Zeloth consulted his tablet. The reports are unusual, Your Majesty. The human named Dongho has learned 17 imperial languages and started a translation service. Half the species in the capital are using it to talk to each other directly, instead of going through imperial channels. And the others? The one called Minho has opened something he calls a food truck. The lines stretch for blocks. Species that have hated each other for centuries are standing together waiting for Korean barbecue. And Hana thought, what about Hana? She's been teaching efficiency improvements to our engineers. Production in the imperial shipyards has increased by 30%. The workers are calling her the miracle human. Vorthak stopped pacing. This is unacceptable. These humans are making us look weak. If other species see that we can't control 4 primitives from an unknown world, they might start getting ideas. What do you suggest, Your Majesty? We test them. Give them tasks that are impossible to complete. When they fail, we execute them publicly. That will remind everyone what happens to those who challenge imperial power. Zeloth made notes on his tablet. What kind of tasks? The worst ones we have. The maelstrom of infinite screams, the Hive collective negotiations, the trials of Zareth. Things that have killed our best people. Your Majesty, are you sure? Those challenges have a combined survival rate of less than 1%? Exactly. The humans will die and order will be restored. The next morning, Admiral Kyrex delivered the news to the human crew. They were eating breakfast in the guest quarters when he arrived with a squad of guards. By order of Emperor Vorthak, you will face 3 trials to prove your worth to the Empire, Kyrex announced. These are challenges that have defeated our greatest warriors and wisest diplomats. Jiwan looked up from his coffee. Okay, what kind of challenges? First, you must navigate the maelstrom of infinite screams, a hyperspace route that has destroyed 97% of all ships that attempt it. Hyperspace navigation. Jiwan nodded. That's basically Hana's job anyway. Second, you must negotiate a peace treaty with the Hive Collective, an alien species that has never compromised on anything in their 3,000-year history. Negotiations, Jiwan said. I can handle that. Third, one of you must survive the trials of Zareth, single combat against creatures that have killed 99.7% of all challengers. Fighting, Minho said, cracking his knuckles. I'll take that one. Kyrex stared at them. Do you understand what I just told you? These challenges are designed to be impossible. You will almost certainly die. Almost certainly isn't the same as definitely, Hana said. Besides, we've had worse jobs. Remember that time we had to mine asteroids during that solar storm, Captain? Oh yeah, Jiwon said. That was rough. This sounds easier. The first trial began 3 days later. The maelstrom of infinite screams was a hyperspace route through a region where space and time got twisted into knots. Ships that entered either never came out or emerged as unrecognizable scraps of metal. Hana sat in the pilot seat of a specially equipped Imperial scout ship, studying the navigation charts. So the problem is that normal navigation doesn't work because space is all twisted up in there. Correct, said the Imperial navigator assigned to watch her die. The gravitational distortions make it impossible to predict safe routes. Okay, Hana said. But space is twisted the same way every time, right? The distortions follow patterns? Well, yes, but the patterns are too complex for any mind to follow, Hana laughed. You've never driven in Seoul during rush hour, have you? Chaos always has patterns if you know how to look for them. She took the ship into the maelstrom. The Imperial navigator closed his eyes and waited for death. Instead, Hana treated the twisted space like a puzzle. When gravity pulled left, she went right. When space folded in front of them, she found the gaps between the folds. The trick is not to fight it, she explained as they flew through impossible geometry. It's like driving in heavy traffic. You don't try to force your way through. You find the flow and follow it. 4 hours later, they emerged safely on the other side. The Imperial navigator opened his eyes, looked around at the intact ship, and quietly started questioning everything he believed about Imperial superiority. The second trial took place on a neutral space station. The Hive Collective had agreed to meet, but only because they wanted to publicly humiliate the Empire by showing that even their champions could not make the Hive compromise. The Hive Queen was 12, feet tall with 6 arms and compound eyes that saw in spectrums human eyes couldn't detect. She had never backed down from any negotiation in her 3-century lifespan. Human, she clicked in perfect Imperial standard. We will listen to your words before we reject them. Jiwan sat across from her at the negotiation table. Thank you for meeting with me, Your Majesty. Before we start, can I ask you something? Speak. How many people do you have to manage in your hive? The Queen's mandibles clicked in surprise. We number 60 billion across 40 worlds. 60 billion, Jiwan whistled. That's a lot of people to keep track of. I complain when I have to manage a crew of 3. How do you handle the logistics? For the next hour, instead of negotiating, Jiwan and the Hive Queen compared notes on management problems. They discussed supply chain issues, communication delays across star systems, and the challenges of keeping large organizations running smoothly. You understand? The Queen said finally. The burden of leadership over so many. I do. And that's why I think this war between your people and the Empire is stupid. You're both trying to manage huge populations across dozens of worlds. Fighting each other just makes both jobs harder. The Queen was quiet for a long moment. What do you propose? Simple. Stop shooting at each other and start trading. The Empire has resources your people need. The Hive has technology the Empire wants. Instead of spending money on weapons, spend it on making your citizens' lives better. 3 hours later, Jiwan walked out with a preliminary peace agreement. The Hive Queen signed it saying, "Finally, someone who understands that leadership is about solving problems, not creating them." The third trial was held in the Imperial Colosseum. Minho stood in the center of the arena, looking up at the 100,000 aliens in the stands who had come to watch him die. For the trials of Zareth, the announcer boomed, the human will face 3 challenges. First, the Razor Beast of Krylon. Second, the Void Wraith of the Dark Nebula. Third, if he survives, the Quantum Warrior from the 5th dimension. The first gate opened and the Razor Beast charged out. It was the size of a small building covered in blade-sharp scales with teeth like swords. It had killed every challenger for the past 5 years. Minho watched it charge toward him and sighed. "Big and fast, but no brain," he muttered. At the last second, he stepped aside and stuck out his foot. The Razor Beast tripped, crashed into the arena wall and knocked itself unconscious. The crowd went silent. The second gate opened, and the Void Wraith floated out. It was made of living shadow, immune to physical attacks, and could drain the life force from any living being. Minho pulled out a small device from his pocket and clicked it on. Bright light flooded the arena. The Void Wraith shrieked and dissolved. "Flashlight," Minho explained to the stunned crowd. "Shadows don't do well in bright light." Basic physics. The third gate opened slowly. The Quantum Warrior stepped out, existing in 17 dimensions simultaneously. It was the most dangerous creature in Imperial custody, undefeated in 300 battles. Minho looked at it for a moment, then sat down on the arena floor. "What are you doing?" the announcer asked. "Waiting," Minho said. "For what?" "For it to collapse. See, the problem with existing in 17 dimensions at once is that it takes enormous energy to maintain. No creature can sustain that for long. I give it about 3 minutes before it burns itself out." 2 minutes and 47 seconds later, the Quantum Warrior flickered and disappeared, exhausted by its own complexity. Minho stood up and dusted off his pants. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to let your opponent defeat themselves. Emperor Vorthak watched from his private box as the human walked out of the arena alive. Around him, his advisors whispered nervously. "Your Majesty," Zeloth said quietly, "perhaps these humans are more dangerous than we thought." "Dangerous?" Vorthak asked. "They just made our greatest challenges look like children's games. If they can do that, what else can they do?" For the first time in his 1,000-year reign, Emperor Vorthak the Eternal was afraid. Not of human weapons or human armies, but of human common sense. Because if these 4 ordinary people could casually solve problems that had stumped the Empire for centuries, what did that say about Imperial wisdom? What did that say about him? Admiral Kyrex stood on the bridge of his flagship and stared at the small human vessel. In his 200 years of service to the Veltharan Empire, he had never encountered anything like this situation. Every species the Empire had met followed the same pattern. First came fear when they saw the Imperial fleet. Then came desperate attempts to fight or bargain. Finally came surrender and acceptance of Imperial rule. It had happened 10,000 times across 10,000 worlds. But these humans were different. "Admiral," his communication officer reported, "the humans are asking if we have a visitor center." "A what?" "They want to know if there's a place where new people can get information about the Empire. They also asked if we have any maps or tourist guides." Kyrex felt his 3 hearts skip a beat. "Are they mocking us?" "I don't think so, sir. They seem genuinely interested in learning about our civilization. One of them is asking about our food." The Admiral looked at the tactical display showing the human ship surrounded by 300 Imperial warships. Each of his vessels could destroy a planet. The combined firepower aimed at the humans could crack a moon in half. And they were asking about tourist information. "Bring them aboard," Kyrex said finally. "I want to meet these creatures." An hour later, G1 and his crew stood in the main hangar of the Imperial flagship. The space was enormous, bigger than most buildings on Earth. Hundreds of alien soldiers in shining armor lined the walls, weapons ready. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows above. "This is pretty nice," Minho said, looking around. "Good ventilation system. Must cost a fortune to heat, though." Hana was taking pictures with her phone. "Wait until the folks back home see this. Nobody's going to believe we met aliens on a Tuesday. Dong-ho was frantically taking notes on his tablet. Captain, I'm picking up at least 6 different alien languages just from the soldiers around us. This is amazing for my linguistics research. Admiral Kyrex walked into the hangar surrounded by his officers. He was tall, maybe 8 feet, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His uniform was covered in medals and symbols of rank. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the massive space. I am Admiral Kyrex of the Veltheran Imperial Fleet. You have violated our sacred space and damaged Imperial property. By the laws of the Empire, you should be executed immediately. Jiwan stepped forward and bowed politely. I'm Captain Jiwan of the Soul's Pride. We're really sorry about breaking your hidden station. We didn't know it was there. We're just miners from Earth. Earth? Kyrex asked. We have no record of this world in our charts. It's pretty far from here. Small blue planet, lots of water, about 7 billion humans living on it. Nothing special. Kyrex exchanged looks with his officers. Nothing special. These humans had traveled between stars to mine asteroids, accidentally discovered one of the Empire's most secret surveillance posts, and they called their civilization nothing special? You will come with us to the Imperial capital, Kyrex announced. Emperor Vorthak the Eternal will decide your fate. Okay, Jiwan said. How long will that take? We need to call our company and let them know we'll be late getting back. You want to call your company? One of Kyrex's officers asked. Well, yes. If we don't check in on schedule, they'll send someone looking for us. It's just good business practice. The trip to the Imperial capital took 3 days. During that time, something strange happened aboard Kyrex's flagship. The humans acted like tourists on vacation instead of prisoners facing execution. Dong-ho spent his time in the ship's library, learning everything he could about Imperial history and culture. By the second day, he was having conversations with alien scholars in their own languages. By the third day, he was correcting their grammar. Hana became fascinated with Imperial technology. She spent hours in the engine rooms, asking questions and taking notes. When she pointed out 3 ways the aliens could improve their engine efficiency, the chief engineer invited her to stay for dinner. Minho found the ship's kitchens and started trading recipes with the alien cooks. His Korean barbecue sauce became so popular that fighting broke out among the crew members trying to get the last portions. But it was Jiwan who caused the most confusion. When Admiral Kyrex showed him the ship's weapon systems expecting fear or awe, Jiwan just nodded and said, Nice guns. They look expensive to maintain, though.
Do you have a good supply chain for replacement parts?
When Kyrex displayed the tactical screen showing the Empire's vast territories, Jiwan studied them carefully and asked, How do you manage communication delays across such long distances? That must be a real headache for administration. Every response was practical and businesslike. The humans treated the mighty Veltheran Empire like it was just another company they might want to do business with. On the 3rd day, they arrived at Zentharos Prime, the Imperial capital. The planet was covered in massive cities that stretched from pole to pole. Billions of beings from hundreds of conquered species lived there, all serving the Empire. Impressive, Jiwan said as their shuttle descended toward the Imperial Palace. Must be murder to manage the traffic flow. The Imperial Palace was a building the size of a mountain, covered in gold and precious stones. Towers reached up into the clouds and bridges connected floating platforms high above the ground. 10 million servants worked inside, maintaining the home of the most powerful being in the galaxy. The Emperor will see you now, Kyrex announced as they walked through halls lined with trophies from conquered worlds. Emperor Vorthak the Eternal sat on a throne made from a single massive crystal. He was even larger than Admiral Kyrex, with skin that seemed to absorb light and eyes that glowed like stars. When he spoke, his voice shook the walls of the throne room. So, the Emperor said, these are the humans who think they can violate Imperial space without consequence. Jiwan stepped forward again. Your Majesty, we really are sorry about the accident. We'd be happy to pay for any damages. Do you take credit cards, or do we need to work out some kind of trade agreement? Emperor Vorthak stared at the small human who had just offered to pay for damages like they were discussing a fender bender in a parking lot. You want to pay? The Emperor asked. Well, yes. We broke your stuff. That's only fair. Although, if you don't mind me saying, you might want to put up some warning signs around hidden stations. Could prevent this kind of thing in the future. For the first time in 1,000 years, Emperor Vorthak the Eternal was completely speechless. He had expected fear, pleading, or defiance. Instead, he got customer service suggestions. In the back of the throne room, Kyrex watched the humans and felt something he had never experienced before. For the first time since joining the Imperial fleet, he was starting to question whether the Empire was really as mighty as everyone believed. After all, if these ordinary humans could treat the most powerful force in the galaxy like it was just another bureaucracy to deal with, maybe the Empire's power was not as real as everyone thought. Captain Jiwan stared at the coffee stain on his console and sighed. The ship's gravity had hiccuped again during the night shift, and now his morning coffee decorated half the control panel. He grabbed a rag and started cleaning while checking the mining reports on his screen. The Soul's Pride was not the prettiest ship in space. She was old, patched up in 17 different places, and made sounds that worried new crew members. But she was reliable, and that mattered more than looks when you were mining asteroids 3 months away from Earth. "Captain, we're coming up on the big rock," called Hana from the pilot seat. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and grease stains on her uniform that never seemed to wash out, the one with all the good metals inside. Jiwan nodded and walked over to look at the screens. The asteroid was huge, almost the size of a small moon. Their scans showed it was full of rare metals that would pay for the next 6 months of ship repairs and crew wages. Maybe even enough left over for that new coffee machine he had been wanting. "Dongho, any other ships in the area?" Jiwan asked. Dongho looked up from his communication station. He was the youngest of the crew at 22, but he was good with languages and computers. "Nothing on any channels, Captain. We're all alone out here." "Good. Minho, how's the mining laser looking?"
Minho wiped his hands on a dirty cloth and grinned.
At 30, he was the oldest crew member after G1. He had fixed every part of the ship at least twice and could make broken things work with spare parts and creative thinking. "She's running hot today, Captain. Really hot. I think I can punch through that asteroid like it's made of butter." Jiwan felt a small worry in his stomach. When Minho said equipment was running hot, sometimes that meant trouble. But they needed those metals and they had come too far to turn back now. "All right, let's do this. Hana, bring us into position. Dongho, record everything for the company reports. Minho, fire when ready." The ship moved slowly toward the asteroid. Space mining was careful work. Rush things and you could blow up your ship along with the rock you were trying to mine. The Soul's Pride settled into position about 2 kilometers away from the asteroid's surface. "Laser is charged and ready," Minho called out. "Target locked on the weak spot we found in the scans. Fire." The mining laser shot out from their ship in a bright blue beam. It hit the asteroid exactly where they had planned. For a few seconds, everything went perfectly. The laser cut deep into the rock, sending up clouds of dust in small pieces. Then something went wrong. Captain," Minho's voice sounded worried. "The laser isn't stopping where it should. It's going right through the asteroid," G1 frowned. "What do you mean, through?" "I mean through. Like the asteroid has a big empty space inside, and our laser just punched a hole from one side to the other." On the main screen, they could see the blue beam coming out the far side of the asteroid, but that was impossible. Their scans had shown solid rock all the way through. "Shut it down," G1 ordered. Minho cut the laser, but the damage was done. As they watched, something started happening on the other side of the asteroid. The space that had looked empty began to shimmer and change. Like a blanket being pulled away, a massive structure appeared where nothing had been before. "What the hell is that?" Hana whispered. The thing that appeared was huge, much bigger than their ship. It looked like a building made of dark metal with strange symbols glowing along its sides. It had clearly been hidden somehow, and their laser had broken whatever was hiding it. "Dongho, are you getting anything on communications?" Jiwan asked. "Nothing yet, but wait." Dongho's fingers moved quickly over his controls. "There's something. It's not human language. The computer is trying to translate." More things started appearing around the hidden structure, ships, lots of ships. They were sleek and silver, much more advanced looking than the Soul's Pride. Some were small, about the size of fighter jets. Others were massive, like floating cities. "Captain," Hana said quietly, "I think we just found aliens." The largest ship moved toward them. It was so big that it blocked out the stars behind it. Strange blue lights ran along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at too long. As it got closer, a voice came through their communication system. The voice spoke in a language that sounded like music mixed with grinding metal. Dongho's computer worked frantically to translate the words. Unknown vessel, you have violated the sacred boundaries of the Veltharan Empire. Prepare to be destroyed for your crimes against the Imperial fleet. Well, Jiwan said. That doesn't sound friendly. More ships appeared around them, dozens, then hundreds. The Soul's Pride was surrounded by an entire fleet of alien warships. Each one could probably destroy their little mining ship with a single shot. Captain, Dongho said, his voice shaking a little. They're demanding we surrender immediately or face total destruction. Jiwan looked around at his crew. Hana was staring at the alien ships with wide eyes. Minya was scratching his head and looking confused rather than scared. Dongho was trying to keep the communication channels open while his hands shook slightly. Hana, Jiwan said calmly, can you get us a translation program running? Something better than what we have now. You want me to work on translation software? Right now? Hana asked. Well, yeah. We need to talk to them and the computer translator sounds like it's having trouble. Also, Minho, stop staring at their ships and tell me if our engines are working. Minho blinked. Our engines? Captain, there are like 1,000 alien warships pointing weapons at us. I can see that, but I want to know if we can move if we need to. And somebody should probably answer them before they get impatient. The crew stared at their captain. Any normal person would be terrified. They had just discovered that aliens existed, that they had a massive empire, and that these aliens were threatening to blow them up. But Jiwan was acting like this was just another day at work. Dongho, Jiwan said. Tell them we're sorry about breaking their hidden thing. It was an accident. We're just miners looking for metals to take home. You want me to apologize? Dongho asked. Well, we did break their stuff. It's only polite. As Dongho sent the message, Jiwan looked out at the alien fleet surrounding them. It was impressive, he had to admit. But he had seen worse things. Like that time the tax collectors had surrounded his last ship with legal papers. At least these aliens were being direct about wanting to destroy him.